Our first candidate is Vic Bugner, is the correct pronunciation. He is an assistant superintendent for curriculum and instruction at the Delta Schoolcraft ISD, located in Escanaba, Michigan. And amazingly enough, he's been out on the road for a while because he travels to math science centers. And so he's been in the area for a while, and he's looking forward to meeting with you as well. So I'll go get him, bring him in, and we're ready to rock.
We'll do our thing here to, I'll call the meeting to order at 6:57.
5:57.
5:57, that's what I said. Pledge of allegiance in a moment of silence. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. And a roll call, please.
Chuck Busuttil.
Present.
Tim Inzikowski.
Here.
Beth Engel. Here. Sharon Stiltner here. Michael Baranowski.
Here.
Andrew Goulet.
Here,
Susan Trebelka. Here. Mr. President, we have a quorum.
thank you. Any visitors and requests?
No.
None. Okay. Waiting for Mr. Ramsey.
Members of the board, it's my pleasure to introduce to you Victor Bugner.
Susan Trebelka, nice to meet you.
Mike Baranowski, nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
Tim Inzikowski, nice to meet you.
Amy Goulet, nice to meet you.
Sharon Stiltner, nice to meet you.
And
We have
Victor,
removed all the electrical outlets of that chair, and you're free to sit.
Victor, we have Chuck Busuttil.
And
Hi, Chuck.
Hi, Victor. Welcome to Algonac.
Thank you.
Says Miami, California. Good evening, Victor, and welcome, and thanks for coming down to visit us. Starting off, can you share with us what prompted you to apply for our position here in Algonac?
Well, I've been thinking about pursuing superintendency from my position at an ISD currently, and when I saw your posting, I got online and started looking into the districts, and I noticed that a lot of the information that was posted online and that was in your district improvement plan really had a great match with a lot of my educational philosophy and with what was going on there, and so I decided to pursue that and come down. Since then, I've looked into the community a lot, and it looks like somewhere that I really think I could fit in.
Thank you.
Great. How would your community members in your current district describe your community involvement?
Well, I currently work in an intermediate school district, and so I have nine districts that I work with, and so I try to make it to all of the districts quite often, but really we're spread across 2 counties, and so there's a couple of districts that I don't get to as often as I'd like to, but I think they'd really say that I'm an active member in the community, and that I'm always there willing to support the schools and the teachers and the administration that's in all of our districts.
Okay, and in a community like Algonac, where school is a significant part of the community, extracurricular and athletic activities are very important. What role do you think a superintendent should have regarding these types of activities? And what are some examples of what you have supported in the past?
I think it's important in a community that is so strong and so close-knit that the superintendent is visible, both in the schools, to the students, to the teachers, and to the administration, but also in the community, to all stakeholders. I think it's important that the superintendent in these communities acts as a throughway and very open to community and school interaction and involvement. That's the type of community that I grew up in, where all the extra activities, everything from school plays to football games to tennis matches, our superintendent was there, you knew who he was, and that's the type of superintendent that I would like to be and be part of that. With regards to my experiences of it, I try to still bring that into all the districts and all the schools that I do. You're always going to see me at the events around.
Thank you.
Victor, can you describe a time that you were under pressure to make a decision and you decided not to make that decision
even though the community or other people wanted to put you and get a decision from you?
Yeah, I've been lucky, I guess, in a lot of my roles that I've been able to make a lot of different decisions in education. Through department head to my current position in charge of curriculum and instruction, and as a liaison for all of our districts. So, what opened my eyes when you said that I didn't make the decision to move forward, and so there's always some form of a decision being made. But I think a lot of it is with regards to making sure that we have to wait and collect more data. So as a director of science, and we called him a district support specialist in Traverse City, we had to make some decisions on what classes we were gonna offer and where we wanted to go with it. And as we progressed forward, we saw a little bit of trouble kind of coming up and with regards to what was going on, so we held off, we collected more data, we waited a couple more years, made sure that the decision that we were gonna make was in line and ready to go with the district goals. And actually, about 2 years later, we found out that wasn't the decision that we should make, so holding off was actually better with it, and we kept all of our classes, kept the diverse classes and moved forward, so.
Thank you.
Victor, Chuck up here on the screen, who are the most important groups of people in a school district, and how would you plan to reach out to them?
I really think that some of the most important people in the school district are the students and the parents. I think that's a big aspect of what's going on, and I think we have to make sure that we reach out and we always keep that our stakeholders, students, parents, community members in mind whenever we do make a decision. With regards to reaching out with them, I think it's really important to keep open lines of communication. I think that our school buildings, our school districts, and our community need to be able to talk back and forth and make sure that that openness is there.
Victor, do you think we have a crisis in school funding? And if so, what are your ideas and suggestions for maybe fixing that?
I don't know as if I would consider it a crisis. I would definitely consider it a turning point. I think school funding is being opened up, and we're looking at new ways to provide funding. My student allotment right now with all of my districts is the minimum amount, and so we're looking for creative ways to pursue additional funding, additional resources, not only grants, but possibly some rescheduling and some aspects like that we have to deal with. I also keep a constant phone conversation with my representatives and my legislation in the area. They know me quite well and I know them quite well, and so we make sure that all of my district's voice is being heard at that level, and we hope to see the right things filter through and come down.
Thank you.
Could you tell us what your top 3 priorities are during tough financial times and why?
I think the top priority, hands down, would be instruction. Instruction on students and making sure that we're meeting the student needs. So I think we have to keep funding directed into the classroom for our students. Other priorities, of course, are, and along with that, I build with safety. And so building safety, building grounds, that needs to remain positive, needs to remain safe for all stakeholders that are there. And then the other priority to me is staffing, because staffing and keeping that close knit with the community is a big issue for me. So those would be my top 3.
How would you go about introducing yourself to our community and staying in touch with community members and maintaining visibility in our district?
Well, I think a lot of it is with going to the extracurricular events and maintaining that aspect of it, but I also think there definitely has to be an introduction period for the superintendent with the community. Events focused around bringing the community into the school, meeting and greeting and understanding where and what the new superintendent is made of and consists of. So outside of meet and greets and community events, I also think it's important for superintendents to live in their districts and live in the communities for which they're working. And so keeping that open and being just an active part of the community. I noticed as I was driving through town, a couple of different, VFW halls and things like that, and the Lions Club and the Lions Park, and I think those are great things for a community to have, and I think it's important for the schools to be represented.
Victor, you mentioned staffing as one of the key points of what your priorities are. How do you address staff morale in tough times like budget cuts and other stressors that might be going on within the district?
I'm really big on open communication. I think it's important that everybody understands why decisions are being made, what's going on with it, and why it's there. But I also think that it's important that school staff start advocating for their benefit and showing everybody what's great and what they do that's positive. I think teachers have a tough time with that a lot of times, and so I'd like to bring attention to that. I saw on your website that you do have the Teacher of the Year and the Support Staff of the Year, and I think that's a great way to continue some of that appreciation that's out there.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
What communication systems or techniques would you, in a position of superintendent, use to keep the community, the staff, school board, and students informed about school? And then could you tell us some accountability to the Board of Education staff, community, and students?
With communication, I think it's important to have not only a prompt up-to-date website, which I notice you keep your weekly updates, and I think that's an excellent thing, where every Monday morning somebody can get on and see what's happening in the school, what's coming up, and I think that's a great thing. A lot of times school districts kind of let that fizzle out, and I don't think that should be done. Also, one thing with a couple of the superintendents that I currently work with that I think is a really great idea is we've contacted the local radio station, and so about every other week they're on the radio giving updates, being active with that aspect, and I think that's a really great thing to do so that the community understands what's going there. Also, you have newspapers and that aspect to get a hold of through Report Here on paper, and to make sure that people are seeing that and seeing the positives of the school and what's going on. With regards to board communication, I think it's important that the board knows that I would maintain an open door policy. So not only would I be prepared to give updates during the board, also through email communication and telephone communication, but if there is a question, the door would be open for everybody to come in, everybody in the community really, in my eyes, to come in and talk through the aspects of the school and what's going on.
Victor, if you were the superintendent of the school district, what role would you play in a bond or a millage campaign?
I think it'd be the role of making sure that the voice is heard, and making sure that the reasons for a bond or millage is out there. Currently, I am working on a Headley override with our ISD and trying to get that through there. So we've just started breaking the ground with it. Soon we'll be contacting all stakeholders in the community moving forward. Our board is approved to move forward with that, and so I think that's key. Also, as a superintendent, I think it's important to have those open meetings, community meetings, and town hall meetings where we can get in and make sure that the need is presented and out there.
Victor, what experiences do you have in personnel contract negotiations? Do you have any experience as a lead negotiator or a member of a negotiation team? And if you have, can you give us some examples of what you've done?
Yeah, I've worked with members of negotiating teams in Traverse City and in Algonac Eastern as we had contracts come up, and so I've worked on it from that side. But I'm a little bit unique because I've also worked on it from the administrative side from when I was in Chicago working for the stone quarry. So when contracts would come up, I would sit on the other side of the table. So I've got experience on both sides of the table with regards to contract negotiation.
Thank you.
Victor, please share some examples of activities and methods that you would use in your present position as curriculum director that keeps you actively engaged in students.
I've got two basic roles with what I currently do. One of them is to provide professional learning to teachers, and I do that as not only the curriculum and instruction, but also the Northwoods Math and Science Center director. And so I have a lot of stuff that I'm working with teachers on, quality questioning, academic vocabulary, flexible grouping, and so we bring teachers in, we work in a professional learning community setting where teachers are open and able to share back and forth, and so I do a lot of that. But that doesn't have direct contact to the students like you asked for, but also as a director of Northwoods, we do student services as part of what I have to offer. So we'll bring students in, we'll do things like family engineering night where students and parents come in and we go through all different engineering, basically games, you know, but it really sparks their interest that way. Or we'll set up a STAR lab and bring students into the STAR lab and we'll explain what's going on and, you know, with looking through that aspect of it. And so outside of getting into a classroom to support a teacher and to see that, my interaction with the students is reserved to those other incidences. So.
And you participate in those other activities right along with the students with those evening or with the parents?
Yeah, definitely. We get in and we have a lot of fun. It's actually quite a bit of fun for me to get in and be back with students and so.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Victor, are there some statewide legislative issues under consideration or being implemented that are of particular interest or concern to you?
I act as a liaison between Lansing and all of my districts, and so I'm very current on all the legislation that's out there. Right now, we're watching very closely House Bills 5223 and 5224, which are educator effectiveness bills. And so we're following those and making sure that teacher evaluation and minister evaluation and making sure that we're on the forefront of that legislation. Some of the other ones are 5111, which is the third grade retention bill that has us thinking very proactive to find out how that's going to come through and then how to progress through there if third grade retention does pass. So those are the two big ones that I'm looking at right now. Yeah.
Victor, we've got a small community here and kind of close-knit. How would you see yourself fitting into the school district here with the small size and the close-knit?
I got down a little early today, so I was able to drive through the community and see what was happening and how it was going. And I thought it was really great because it's a community where as I drive down the streets, people are friendly, they wave at you. They see, you know, they know that maybe the car's not one they see all the time, but it's definitely something that's going on. So I see myself being a great fit here. I've lived in areas from Chicago to Twining, Michigan, and that school district, Algonac Eastern, pre-K-12 was 320 students when I was there. So another very small school. Very close-knit community, and I really, again, I think it's very important to be a part of the community that you're living in. I think that just really vitalizes yourself and makes everybody around you better. Mm-hmm. So I see me being a good fit.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Describe some ways that you have used data to make curriculum decisions that have enhanced student achievement.
Actually, in all of my districts, I've been on data analysis teams, and so everywhere from Twining when we first sat down and we started looking at the broad picture, our MEP scores, and realizing that we had to alter some of our classrooms, alter some of the resources in there and the styles and the formats that we were teaching. And so myself and the science teacher would sit down and we'd reorganize the math and science and work to integrate that instruction and what was going on. To currently where I'm working in a multi-tiered system of supports for my schools. And where that is that we're drilling all the way down to the students. So we're starting with our MEP scores, and then we're drilling all the way down towards progress monitoring tools, which are some tests that our districts have created, some have purchased, and we get right into identifying what the students' needs are, and then we build intervention strategies on that. And so it's a 3-tiered level. The first level is tier 1, and we're hoping that 80% of our students understand the material after the first tier. Where then in the second tier, we're hoping that 15% of the students can retain and understand through small group interventions or a little bit of extra just support with the material while still hitting that tier 1, and then our most intense interventions as tier 3. And so we're right down to the individual student working one-on-one and finding out after their first intervention how we can help support that. So I'm very active with that with all of my districts.
A little scenario that potentially could happen. Let's say a teacher and a principal come to you with a concern that one of the students may be potential to hurt himself or herself or another staff member within the building. How did you handle that?
Well, I think it's definite necessary that we move forward and we take the threat seriously, in my eyes. And so, dependent upon the exact scenario and what's going on, I think it's important that we get a hold of social workers, police if need be, psych support if need be, and we bring them in and we deal with that student right at that time. And so, with regards to hurting themselves or others in the building, and there's safety is very important to me, and so we need to act on that and move right away.
Do you have any questions for us?
Yeah, I do. How would you describe the next superintendent?
Well, being that that person isn't here yet, it would have to be, I don't know, in my opinion, and from the profiles that the board put together, we all came pretty close on what our opinions about that were. We need people with vision who are. Algonac is a place of innovation and ideas and risk taking. It has been for a very long time, and having someone a visionary person that can foster that, and our staff thrives because they are able and willing and encouraged to take risks and to try new things and to innovate and collaborate and do wonderful things. It has to be somebody that is able to grasp that and be able to handle that kind of controlled chaos, I guess you could call it. It's no new news that the financial state of things in our state are not conducive or friendly to schools. So trying to do all of the wonderful things that we do for children, the most cost-effective and efficient ways we can. And I don't know, anybody else have something? That's kind of pretty much what I got out of it.
Well, you'd have to be very involved with the community, that's for sure, so we could see, how you work with the people and the children. Outgoing, number one. And he said a visionary, that's certainly something that we would look at.
Our past couple of superintendents now have been very highly visible in the buildings, talking with teachers, seeing kids. If you're having a bad day, our superintendent that was here when I got on the board, he said, when I'm having a bad day, I go see the kindergartners. Yeah. Because there's nothing about kindergarten that won't make you happy. So it has to be somebody like that.
I think we need somebody too that's, can be a miracle worker, when it comes to finding innovative ways to, find money to keep programs going that we already have in place, and not lose sight of the fact that, that's the most important, is the education.
It's that idea of the whole child, not just the test score. Yeah.
Exactly.
Excellent.
What else?
How would you describe the?
You've got some time left, so.
Oh, okay. I talk quick? Is
Yeah,
that?
well, I was like, this 17 questions was supposed to take an hour, and we're at about 25 minutes,
Oh, okay.
but.
How do you describe the community and the school relationship currently, and then how do you see that being enhanced?
Anybody else want to turn?
I think you would be the best one to answer this.
Thanks, Tim. Our community has been through quite a bit in the last few years. There have been some turbulent times. There have been some good times as well. A lot of people are not happy about some unpopular decisions that have been had to have been made by this board. There was a hotly contested election a year and a half ago as a result of that. There are still some feelings out there about that, if you will. And the district has been tasked with working through that by continuing to do what's right for students and keeping our staff informed and involved and encouraged with, again, it goes back to the innovativeness and risk-takingness and things that happen here, that have been happening here for a long time. Algonac is a place rich in history, and history comes back around every once in a while. And personally, I see that, starting to happen again. So it's an interesting time to be in Algonac. Our previous superintendent, when he left kind of in the storm was still going pretty good, and but things have calmed down under Mr. Bruten's stewardship, and I think we're getting there, and this too shall pass.
Based on lack of funding, we've had to make some unpopular decisions, and it's kind of put us in a little bit of a whirlwind, but I think everything is starting to heal up. Communication is key in our community, and I think slowly throughout the last several months we've learned that and are trying to be more open about everything that we do. Not that we weren't, but we've gone to broadcasting all of our meetings now also. And we really encourage community involvement now more than I think we have in the past. So I think we're getting to the turning point of involving everybody who we'd like to have involved or who would like to be involved. And we're stepped in the right direction. But there are some not bad decisions that we had to make based on lack of funding. And I'm sure every school district has gone through that.
And it's very tough time for communities when they're seeing that and those decisions are having to come through, but I agree, I think with a lot of communication and openness, obviously that's a great thing to do when communities can start to understand and see some of those tough decisions that our boards at all levels across the state are being forced to make. So.
A good example of that, what Brian's done just recently is our budget is coming up shortly, and we had some challenges there. He's reached out to the community in different organizational events, bring forth data, talk to our stakeholders and let them not only know what we're facing, but also get their input on what they're feeling within the questions and the challenges that we have. So again, I think openness, communication, bringing forth data, for people to understand is important.
And I think that's key, as you said, with bringing data forth and then getting the community not only to see it, but also to have input on it. I think it's key, and we're currently working with that with some of the strategic plans that we're working with at Northwoods Math and Science Center. And so we do exactly that. This is the data that we have, but we'd like to increase. So now how can we bring that in together? And so I've got a lot of experience with regards to that. You had lots of discussion about innovation and moving forward and being risk-taking and stuff. How is that being accepted by all your staff here, and how does that come into play?
Well, like I said, it's a very interesting time to be in Algonac.
Okay.
I'll give you a very short history lesson. This is where Chris Kraft was born.
Right.
All right, right over down yonder. And Algonac at one time had a class of boat building class. And there is a picture in the Centennial book somewhere of on the other side of that wall right there, these boys in this class with their boats standing up against the building, standing next to their boats.
Oh, okay.
And I was talking with a teacher who was a shop teacher here during that time, and he said when they got done building the boats, the kid with the highest grade in the class got to pick which boat he wanted. You didn't necessarily get your boat. And then on down through the ranking of the class, that's how they figured out which boat everybody got. So that was kind of an innovative thing way back a long, long time ago. The same guy also told me Algonac was the first high school in the state of Michigan to offer an electronics class. If you're, they had electronic class when I was in school, but it was kind of on its way out, and I didn't take it. But they were building radios and stuff like that. But the guy who invented it here, and then took it other places. So Algonac is, and that was in the '60s. So fast forward to today, we're starting to implement one-on-one technology, iPads and tablets, and our bond issue from 2008 allowed us to put tons of infrastructure to support smart boards and you name it, and it's here. And our staff has gone, I remember going to buildings on the first day of school and watching as these teachers were teaching each other stuff. I can take my boom box home because I can play the internet over the speakers in my classroom, all the way down to I don't have to take attendance anymore. The kids can come in and drag their name from their list of names to hot lunch, cold lunch, or I brought my own.
Right.
And attendance is done all at once and things of that nature. It has changed how teachers teach and how children learn. And the next step is one-to-one, which some people have struggled with. But you know, the innovators that we have here, I think are reaching back and grabbing those folks and dragging them, whether they're kicking and screaming or what, but they're dragging them along, and it's going to happen because none of this stuff is going away. And children are not where they used to be when any of us were in school. This is where they are now, and we have to go to where they are to find them to get education to them, and that's beginning to happen here.
IB program.
And our IB program is, you know, we're innovative in a way that it was thought of several years back to explore IB. And when our staff got a hold of that out at the high school, it was another one. They kind of looked at it for a minute, but once it took hold, why it's at all levels throughout the whole through the whole building, and we're exploring whether to move it to the primary and the middle years. So, you know.
So you're currently working with the graduate part of the IB?
Correct.
Just at the high
Yes.
school. Excellent.
Yeah. And that's been a very interesting process too.
Yeah.
You know, when those folks came to, they came and interviewed the board. We had a meeting, special meeting one morning out at the high school, and they came and interviewed us. It wasn't an easy interview. I mean, it was, you know, they weren't coming to ask us for something. They were coming to ask us stuff.
Right.
And it was a very interesting process. But you know, here we are. We're in IB school now. Got the ticket on the wall.
Excellent, yeah. Yeah, that is an interesting process. I've helped a couple of schools kind of go through that process and look into it and start adopting, and it's really quite entertaining, isn't it? So, but it's really exciting that you talk about the technology. I know you were going with the one-to-one and looking at even bringing it down levels also, but that's something that I embrace very much, is technology in the classroom and making sure that teachers are ready to do that innovation, because you're right, this technology isn't going away, it's only going to advance. And so I spend a lot of my time with the professional learning that I provide to administrators all the way to teachers with how to integrate that. And I've actually held a couple of classes for parents and stakeholders on, this is what you're going to see happening in the classroom.
Interesting question. So I'll ask you then, where is the next step for our kids in Michigan?
The next step,
The next advance that we're got in technology? It was an iPads. Now, you guys are forward thinkers, so there's something else out there I'm sure that you're looking at that is probably beyond the iPad, or is there?
I like the tablet aspect of it. I don't know as if our students are ready to go Google Glass yet, but I see that coming. And how I see that aspect hitting our classrooms is that the instruction and the learning that's taking place in the classroom, we have to make sure that we adjust. And so whether it be Google Glass or an iPad or the new smartphone watches that we can talk to and everything else, we need to make sure that students are learning in an integrated, intentional environment. And by that I mean we're not isolating English with English, we're not isolating science with science anymore. We're actually utilizing what interests students in order to integrate that aspect of it. And technology integration is part of it, right? We have to make sure that our students are comfortable with whatever the tool it is that they're out there. And questioning needs to adapt. And I learned that when I was still in the classroom. As I was in the classroom and I asked a question of my kids, one kid raised their hand and said, "Can I just cha-cha this?" I had no idea what she was talking about. I thought she was gonna get up and do a dance or something. I had no idea. And so, sure enough, she started texting because I said, "Yeah, whatever, go ahead." And I asked her what cha-cha was. Well, she texted a question to cha-cha and it texted her back within 30 seconds the answer to the question. And I at that time said, we've got to change what happens in our classrooms right now, because these kids know more than we ever will with regards to resources on finding the simple answers. And so I think that's our next step as educators, is making sure that we enhance whatever the technology is that the kids are going to use, because it's out there and it's much more than we ever know.
And the learning, we're kind of free for all right now with what we're doing with it.
Right.
And my thing about, you're exactly right with these kids knowing things that we don't know, you know. Where did this come from? Who taught them that, okay? It didn't happen in school.
No.
Mom and dad didn't teach it to them. How did they do that? And so I think it's important for schools everywhere to be able to harness whatever that thing is,
Right.
to use for educational, you know, to be able to, because that's where, like I said, that's where they are, you know.
That'll take their thumbs.
We've been doing flipped classrooms here,
Right.
you know, and what a great idea, you know. I mean, you watch the videos and the lectures at home and we do the homework in class. I mean,
Right.
which is, had folks say, it's really interesting because now I can see how to do it instead of having to try to help do it from something that I didn't hear or see or know anything about. So that's, you know.
Exactly, and that's something that once teachers embrace, they really see the benefits behind that. And I think that's key for our students. And we're working on that in a lot of our classrooms in the UP. And so what we've even enhanced and done is that I've bought flash drives for students so that we can download in case they don't have internet access at home. Or we've burned DVDs because they have a DVD player at home that they can utilize. But where I was most impressed with it was when I was in Traverse City in the classroom, and all of a sudden I was standing next to a couple of my AP students at a basketball game, and they checked their phone right away because they got a push from a colleague of mine on Twitter that said, "Hey, don't forget you've got your AP quiz tomorrow, so make sure you go home and study it." So the kids were sitting there in the basketball game and getting the Twitter feed from their teacher and then talking about, "Oh yeah, but I know the vocabulary already." And so I really saw that enhanced. And so students are gonna pick that up wherever we go, because it is their life now, you know, with phones and whatever.
One of our teachers said that she had told her students at the high school, you cannot call, text, tweet, or whatever, between the hours of 10 at night and 6 in the morning. You have to leave me alone. I get that 8 hours. The rest of it you can have, but I get that 8 hours.
And that's, a lot of people comment to me because don't need a lot of sleep, is the type of personality that I am, and I did the same thing with my students. You know what, if you're texting me at 11 o'clock, 10 o'clock at night, or emailing me at that time, the only reply you'll get will be, go to bed. We'll deal with it in the morning, so make sure you get your rest. So,
Right.
but that's where we're at.
Very good. We have 20 minutes left if you have anything else. No?
I think you've answered my questions, and so,
Very good.
and I think that's where we're at.
Well, thank you again for coming, and
No problem.
you got a guy in a green sweater sneaking up on you.
Right on.
We have a little rating assignment we're gonna take care of.
There we go.